Hi, I'm Tom Scioli, author of Godzilla's Monsterpiece Theater from IDW. Issue 2 will be out later this month. Final Order Cutoff for Issue 2 is Monday, is right now, is today. So let your retailer know that you want a copy of Godzilla's Monsterpiece Theater, Issue 2.
I placed my order, so...
Nice. Yeah, you got this. This is your actual copy of Godzilla's Monsterpiece Theater, because I don't have my copies yet. We saw a movie. We saw...
Saturday night. The new SNL movie from Jason Reitman. Basically, talks about the opening night of the first episode of SNL.
And it's young Lorne Michaels. And I mean... you see young Lorne Michaels in like some of those early Saturday Night Live episodes. So we think of him as this sort of gray guy, but like there is video evidence that he was young at a point, and and he was kind of like a baby face. In this movie, they like turn up the baby face.
I was about to say, Gabriel Abel, like Lorne Michaels is counting his blessings. He's like the best thing that ever happened to him. Because like even as a young kid, I knew like Lorne Michaels seemed like he meant business.
Right,
even when I was in high school, I'm like, I don't ever want to cross paths with Lorne Michaels.
You don't want to be on the wrong side of Lorne Michaels. The guy who plays Lorne Michaels looks like he might not be old enough to get in to see like an R-rated movie, to like see his own movie.
Yeah, you put a little milk on his mustache, have a cat lick his whiskers off. Like
now he doesn't. The other thing, I was expecting him to do like a Lorne Michael impersonation.
Me too.
Everybody else. Now when he first shows up in the movie, I think they tease it because he purses his lips a little, he's about to say hello, or, my show.
I was in the darkened theater waiting for. I was like, one like this. I was
okay.
One.
So I wasn't the only one.
You weren't the only one.
So that was like a deliberate flourish to like get you to think he's about. It's kind of like Ramius in The Hunt for Red October, where like it zooms in on his mouth and then he goes for like speaking Russian.
It's my fucking
It's like they show it and you're expecting, and then it's like we're not doing that. This movie. We're not gonna waste everybody's time with somebody.
Hello, and it zooms in, then he zooms out. He's talking normally.
Mike Myers does does like ADR. He does like the voiceover, like they insert his Lorne Michaels impersonation. But no, so it's like he
drops the purse. He just has a normal
just after that first scene to kind of get you from the Lorne Michaels to this Lorne Michaels. And he just talks in like a normal voice. Yeah.
Like later in the movie, he pops a purse too once in a while. He's like looking at that board. He was like.
It's like in J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movies where every now and then like they'd move Chris Pine like a little closer, like he'd do some Shatner.
I think I've seen pictures of Lorne Michaels wearing like he's got the puffy white shirt, the brown vest. Looks great.
The details were pretty spot on. It was cool seeing, like it was cool just kind of like the movie it's fun, it's funny. It moves fast. It just kind of whips you around. Like the camera's going here and there, and you get to kind of explore that iconic space.
Yeah, 30 Rock.
Yeah, which was a lot of fun.
You know what the stylistic choices remind me of? Birdman.
Interesting. Okay, yeah.
Like the way,
because Birdman was a little bit kind of like that too, where it was almost kind of in like real time.
Yeah. And I was like, I kept thinking about Birdman.
That's
like,
a good
the whole
call.
Time.
That's a good call.
I do like how there's different shows happening on different floors of the building.
Right, and it's like you see sort of like old showbiz, and because Saturday Night Live, we think of it as this like revolutionary thing, and it does kind of stand out. It is pretty different from what's on TV right now. But back then, it was part of that variety show genre that was just like dominant in the 70s, but it was that variety show, but with a more sort of contemporary, like a sort of a cutting edge flavor, as opposed to the sort of corniness, the cornball. Like it seemed like they leaned into the cornball, and like we watched like the Brady variety show,
I was thinking of that,
and they have their like candy striper outfits and stuff, like canes and bouncing up and down.
I love a good cane where somebody warned them. They're like, do not let Barry Williams in here. They'll like run the whole cast off.
So they go downstairs, and it's like you see what the rest of TV looks like. The rest of variety TV looks like back then, and it's like
Uncle Milty.
Yeah, Uncle Milty is there doing like this like musical number where he's like just like raising his eyebrows and stuff.
if anyone's wondering, his his salami does make a cameo.
Yeah, it is kind of like give the people what they want. It's like there's all kinds of stuff in that movie where they're like, okay, we know, like the only thing anybody knows about Milton Berle is that he has a giant penis and that he likes to like whip it out at the least excuse. And so it's like, okay, we're gonna have that, and then like, okay, we're gonna let all the characters do some of their signature bits, even though their signature bits don't show up until like later in the season or maybe in the second season of Saturday Night Live. We're gonna give you that kind because we're giving you this snapshot. We're giving you right before it goes, but we're still giving you like the Saturday Night Live story. So you are going to want to see the Killer Bees, even though the Killer Bees don't make it into the, they're not in that first show, unless I'm mistaken. And then the Dan Aykroyd character, he's going around to everybody doing his like male prostitute character. And it's like, that's not in the first, all this stuff. Like, I'm surprised Steve Martin didn't show up to kind of like visit, like just to hang out. He's like, I'm not going to be on the show, but I hang out. And then the two of them start talking about wild and crazy guys, because it was like, here's the greatest hits, even though they don't make it to the actual show. But they did sort of have a conceit that allowed that, because Lorne has this like bulletin board with all the skits or sketches or whatever. I know people make a big deal about skit versus sketches, but I'll call it a skit if I want to. But they have he has all like the with all these different like file cards up of all the, and then he gets rid of like 90% of them to get the final show. So I think that's to let us know that like, okay, the Killer Bees were gonna be in the first episode, but they just didn't make it to it, and that's why they show up like later on.
I didn't know Billy Crystal got like cut for time.
Yeah, that was like a real thing, because like Billy Crystal, I think of Billy Crystal being part, like the You Look Marvelous.
Yeah,
like that was when I started watching Saturday Night Live, because I had I was maybe in like, I don't know, early grade school, first grade, something like that. But I had a friend who, like, his mom and dad would let him stay up and watch Saturday Night Live. Like, I hadn't even heard of the show, but like, I didn't know Saturday Night Live from Saturday Night Fever. It's like, which one, is John Travolta on Saturday Night Live? But he would stay up and watch Saturday Night Live, and so he'd talk about, you look marvelous. He'd like talk about, and I'm like, I got to see this, and then I got to see the show, and then eventually I like stayed up to watch it, and it was that Billy Crystal era with You Look Marvelous. So, I mean, that's many years after that initial season. But just one thing, like, so I was watching it. This is my first time watching Saturday Night Live. And then the host is Roy Scheider.
Oh, nice.
So then Roy Scheider comes out, and I'm just like, okay, when's he going to say You Look Marvelous? Like, I thought Roy Scheider would, like, because to me, Saturday Night Live was a show where somebody says You Look Marvelous. So I'm like, okay, just... licking my chops, waiting for Roy Scheider to say, "You guys are marvelous. You're marvelous." Like he comes in, he's doing this. I'm like, "You look marvelous. You look marvelous. Hey, you up there? You look oh, you guys are marvelous. You guys are marvelous. I can't believe how marvelous you guys are. Oh, thanks so much for those applause. You're marvelous."
That's so funny. Like Roy Scheider's such a serious actor.
Yeah.
So like,
this, because I wasn't clued in yet that like, there's rotating hosts. It's like, no, it's a show where a guy says you look marvelous. Hey, there's the guy. This is the main guy in the show. He's gonna say you look marvelous.
Come on, you look.
Yeah, I'm waiting. I'm waiting to say you look marvelous.
You look marvelous.
Like I'm like mouthing it like as he's. I'm like, you look marvelous. You look marvelous. Okay, come on, you look marvelous. You got like I kept like because again he's like taking the applause from the crowd, so I'm waiting for him to say like, you guys are marvelous.
You're like headed the top of your head pops up.
I don't know how long. I don't know how long it took before I saw like the actual. Because it was probably in that same episode. I'm sure that episode, because back in that era, they didn't have a lot going on. So, like, Billy Crystal doing You Look Marvelous would feature pretty heavily.
So, I didn't even realize until, like, the last, like, 5 years that Billy Crystal was on SNL.
Right, yeah.
You missed that.
Okay, that was... when I started watching, it was... and then, like, the thing I would hear about was You Look Marvelous, and then the other thing I'd hear about was, like, two guys talking about like injuring themselves, like they would, and that was another. That was
I don't know that sketch.
That was Billy Crystal and Christopher Guest. there were these two characters, and I think they'd be like night watchmen or something, like, or they'd be like construction workers. They'd be in various like situations, but they'd just be sitting there talking about different ways they've injured themselves, you know. So those were like the two things I knew about. I guess those were like the two blockbuster,
you look marvelous.
Oh, you Total Recall viewers, you guys are marvelous. Because it wasn't even like, I think I just knew the marvelous part because I wasn't even like expecting them to say you look marvelous. I was just expecting him to tell people that they are marvelous.
I got in with the like Sandler era, the Chris Rock, Chris Farley, Sandler.
Yeah, I would sort of I'd watch it intermittently. And it was like Billy Crystal and then Eddie Murphy and
what era was like Lovitz
and Martin Short. I like watch this, and then I remember watching it where it was all like the Brat Pack, where it was like Robert Downey Jr. and Anthony Michael Hall.
Yes,
remember watching those, and then
it's like Charles Rocket.
Yeah, well, Charles Rocket was before. Charles Rocket was like immediately after the initial cast, like the initial. Like they all left, like everybody from that initial cast left, and then it was Charles Rocket, Gilbert Gottfried, Denny Dillon, and Mr. Bill. Mr. Bill was like a big, because again, like I was just little, so it was like, oh, Mr. Bill, like this animated, this this Play-Doh character. He made sense, but then I think Lovitz might have been part of that
Piscopo era.
Piscopo was there. Piscopo was there, part of the Charles Rocket era. And part of the Eddie Murphy era. And it was like when everybody got fired, Gilbert included, just Piscopo and Eddie Murphy remained. They were like the two that remained. And then you had that Anthony Michael Hall season, and I think Lovitz might have been part of that. And then like Lovitz predated the sort of what I think of as like the classic cast. For me, when like the show really clicked for me, probably because I was getting into the right age range and just the quality of the show went way up, was that Dana Carvey, Phil Hartman, Jan Hooks, like that to me that was like the best era of Saturday Night. Like that was when it, just when it really gelled. And the church lady,
I felt like I was absorbing that era, and like the
and Lovitz was part of that, but I think Lovitz predated that by a hair, by like half a season.
Somehow nobody was laughing at like the church lady thought that was funny.
Church lady was multiple, like because I like the church lady, and then my parents liked the church lady,
everyone
and they would imitate. They would all say like, "Oh, isn't that Spanish?" I remember my dad's imitation of the church lady saying, "Isn't that special?"
Yeah, like it was.
And my dad, like, he didn't nail it. Like he thought he nailed it, but he didn't, because he put like a little southern twang on it. He'd be like, "Well, isn't that Spanish?"
Yeah, there wasn't.
He was getting it crossed with "Kiss My Grits." He got "Kiss My Grits," and his like TV that was Flo on Alice. TV catchphrase.
Oh, yeah,
was fusing his '80s catchphrases.
My mom loved, the class. She'd be like, you'd see like Bill Murray or Chevy Chase, she was like, they're from SNL.
Well,
she would clue me in that they were on Saturday
That's the other
Night
thing.
Live.
Like my whole life, like watching, so I'd be watching this like amazing cast, that like Phil Hartman cast, but then my dad would be telling me like, these aren't even the good ones. The good ones, it was the original ones, and it was Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd. And
that's what my mom would like, kind of
Bill Murray, and you'd hear that, and you're like, oh my, that does sound great, because like Chevy Chase was in all those vacation movies and Fletch and stuff. It's like, and then you got all the Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, you're right, this does sound amazing, and it was so built up. And John Belushi, and it's like, he was like this saint. He was like kind of, he's already gone by that point. And it's like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. And then when I was like a little older, maybe like middle school age, they started playing somewhere on cable. They would show like the first season and
I would watch that at my grandmother's. That's what I would see.
Yeah, you'd see it on cable. And then then it was like, it did not live up to the hype. I'm like, this stuff is horrible. It isn't. But like at first, I'd be like, okay, this is the real stuff. I'm watching the real set. This is going to be great. And I'd kind of be like, yeah, this is great. This is great. But then it kind of dawned on me after a little that this stuff isn't great.
I didn't get to that point, because when I would start to watch it, I'm like, maybe I don't feel like settling in. I wouldn't even try to watch it. I'd be like, I think I want to watch something else or something.
Yeah, I wouldn't
even go into
and that's probably like
this looks kind of boring.
Exactly, that's probably unthinkable or what. But it was that generation gap where it's like it was so hyped, and then you see it and it's like, well, actually, I think my Saturday Night Live's better. I think the Phil Hartman era is better. But then that was another thing, because when that Sandler era came around, it was one of those things, everybody I knew thought it was hilarious and we'd talk about, I'm crazy pickle guy, man. I'm crazy pickle in the head, man. Everybody would be imitating and we all loved it. But then it was the grown-ups were like, oh, this Saturday Night Live is at its worst. This is terrible.
I would be with Conan and Saturday Night Live, I would just go into school and we would just redo the bits they did on there.
Yeah. And Cajun, man, we do a
or Canteen Boy or something.
Masturbation.
Chris Farley, he's a Matt Foley.
Exactly.
David Spade.
That was a thing where we were on the right side of a generation gap. But then there was that cast with Michael McKean in it and stuff.
Oh yeah.
That was the cast where I thought okay, Saturday Night Live has gone off the rail. It's gone into it's shit now. Time to cancel. And I think that was the era when it came close to getting canceled. Or maybe maybe it was because I know they fired the whole a whole bunch of people.
I do like how there's some cast members always creep into different eras.
Yeah, rotating in and out. Yeah.
Will Ferrell was at the tail end of the Sandler era, but then had his own era too.
I remember when Will Ferrell was on it, and Tim Meadows was somebody who kind of predated Will Ferrell, and then was part of his cat. He was one of those people who was kind of part of a couple different seasons, and he was on some talk show. Maybe he was on Conan, I forget what, but he was talking about how anytime there's a scene where they need somebody to be in a bathing suit or something, it has to be him, because he was saying this new cast, and I think he was referring to Will Ferrell. He's this new cast, they're kind of out of shape. So he's and so then he kind of caught himself and realized what he was saying. He's yeah, they're fat and they suck. They suck too. So and this was when Will Ferrell, and Sherry O'Terry were kind of they were just starting out and they were just doing the cheerleaders, and we were into the cheerleaders, but you could tell that it hadn't clicked into place quite yet.
Well, I saw
they're fat and they suck. I wonder if Will Ferrell saw that interview with Tim Meadows and then realized to use it to his advantage, to be okay, because thinking about it, Will Ferrell was naked in a lot of sketches and stuff too.
I can just when I think of Will Ferrell, I think of him in a Speedo half the time. And one of my favorite episodes was the Jim Carrey.
I was just thinking of the Jim Carrey one. That was a big turning point, I think, when Jim Carrey.
He was that fitness guy, Jack LaLanne.
I like this tangent that we're on, but just getting back to the Saturday night movie. One of the things, because talking about that Phil Hartman era, so it's okay, I get it. Most likely, they didn't come up with the Killer Bee sketch. Right before the first episode. They obviously must have come up with that later on down the line. But you could also maybe make the excuse of saying they were kind of seasoned performers, coming out of Second City and various and so maybe they did have a whole repertoire of stuff, and it was just a matter of bits and things, and maybe they had been doing the Killer Bees, years, in the Groundlings or something. Exactly. So again, kind of, okay, so that's another way that the premise that, in this movie, these elements could work. But then they had, Al Franken had a box of colon blow in front of his desk.
I know you mentioned
and it's
I don't know how I missed that.
There's no possible, they did not write the colon blow commercial 10 years before, a completely different cast. 10 years before it came down, so then I realized, oh, okay, maybe we're not supposed to buy this reality of that, they were working on the Killer Bees and Jaws not gonna, like Land Shark.
Land
and stuff.
Shark.
Maybe they weren't. Maybe we're not supposed to buy that. Maybe this is just, oh, it's this fun fantasy that you're watching, and we're gonna sprinkle it with little, Easter eggs. Exactly. So like the colon blow wasn't because Al Franken actually wrote colon blow 10 years before it saw air. But that, this is a Saturday Night Live movie. We're just having fun here. So isn't it cool? Here's a box of, someone's eating colon blow, And for those of you that notice, you're like, oh, hey, that's colon blow. Everybody else would just assume it's just a normal box of cereal.
You showed me the Stern Show long-running feud with Chevy Chase and Stern. And that was like, I kept thinking about that the whole time we were watching Saturday Night. That is... I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, the Saturday Night movie. The other thing is like John Belushi. Like again, I enjoyed the movie from start to finish, and those little things would come up and kind of like my brain would sort of puzzle over them, but it didn't stop me from enjoying it. But another one of the things is like John Belushi in that movie.
Oh my God,
he was playing. Bluto Blutarski. He wasn't playing John Belushi. He was really just like John Belushi in that movie was just his character from Animal House.
Yeah, 24/7.
Yeah, because I imagine that the real John Belushi was very like articulate, very funny, very whatever. And like there, he's just like
he didn't come across very very well. In the movie.
He didn't. Yeah, that isn't. But again, I think it's like you're making a movie and you're just trying to like figure out what's funny, because it was kind of the same with Jim Henson, where it's like they were just kind of playing off the visual of Jim Henson, because you see like these pictures of Jim Henson with like the bandana and stuff
and like microphone.
And so instead of presenting like the reality of what Jim Henson really is, it's like, oh, let's play off of just that look, that look of like this guy with the bandana and stuff.
Like I don't know if it was in the movie, but they mentioned. But you know how they had the writers were writing for like the Land of Gorch, like his the Muppet sketch. O'Donoghue kept refusing. He says he doesn't want to write he never writes for felt. That's what he said.
Yeah,
I've
heard some of those.
For felt.
I have heard the stories about like the Muppets, like the chemistry not being right between like Jim Henson and the rest of Saturday Night Live or whatever, but. Again, the way they presented it seemed, cartoon. But again, I don't have a problem with any of that. Like, because I was just enjoying the ride of this really entertaining, really compelling movie, and that did kind of, like, even though it's very fantastical, a lot of it, you still do feel like you're getting some kind of sense of what the thing, even though, but through the prism of this stylized reality.
And it was fast paced too, so like
you didn't
very
have time to get bored. It's funny, I did laugh. I didn't laugh a ton, but I did laugh, but that kind of like I was just so entertained. I was just like really entertained. And the one thing I was thinking, like I thought it was great. It was just super enjoyable, but I was kind of, you kind of look at it and you're like, oh, what if this, what if that? And I was just like, there was cocaine in it, but I feel like there should have been a ton. Like it should have been like Scarface.
I was thinking about that myself. I was appreciating that they were smoking in the movie.
They were smoking,
but
and cocaine was in it.
But Tom, there should have been like uppers, downers, poppers, zippers.
It should have been a little like I would have liked it because it was also like a very sweet movie. I would have liked it to have been a little bit nastier, a little more of an edge. Again, more coke, more sex. But it was like the performers were just like really great. That guy who was playing Chevy Chase. It was kind of fun to see.
He was capturing
like the essence of Chevy and that particular Chevy Chase, because I mean, that's a long, long time ago, and it's just like full of like the swagger.
It is,
and where like his, like he kind of fit the swagger.
It's
where
perfect.
It's like, there was the one line again where it's like an Easter egg where the guy's like, you could have Johnny Carson
I
Johnson.
know,
And
and we both looked at each other like, the Chevy Chase show.
Yeah.
I still remember on Route 30 there was a billboard for that. I remember seeing it, and it was Chevy Chase with like Dave Letterman's Gap. I gotta track this down.
That's funny.
But
how come nothing like that made it into the show? I watched that show. Did you watch the show?
Yeah,
I watched it, and I don't know if this was the first episode or something, but I watched it in real time, and Goldie Hawn is like 2 inches away from Chevy Chase's face, singing this song I think it's called like "Funny Face" or something. Like she's singing this like romantic ballad to Chevy Chase, and they're both like tearing up, and it's like it's not a bit like it's hilarious thinking about it now, but it was just like it was like crickets.
That's fucking hilarious. I remember being in the car going down Route 30 and being like, Mom, look, and it was a billboard right on Route 30, and it was him behind the desk, and it's like, there's space for a new guy.
That's really fun. That's funny. That is funny.
Isn't that fucking
I don't remember seeing anything funny on that show. And I think like the opening credits or whatever, it was like a claymation or animated Chevy Chase kind of like sneaking through the city or something. You know?
And I love a claymation intro.
Okay.
You got me into Thick of the Night too.
Yeah, I think this is our job right now. We got to watch
the Chevy Chase show. You don't have to twist my arm, Tom.
Yeah. Like one of the things that did make me laugh a lot in this SNL movie or Saturday Night was Paul Rust as Paul
That was
Schaefer.
my favorite part, actually. Of the movie.
It's funny because there was no like deep insight or anything. Like,
no, he just standing around.
He barely said anything, but he just had this like this like shit-eating grin. Yeah, and just kind of this like happy, but like maybe not really connected to reality look on his face, and just something. It just made me crack up. Like he, and again, Paul Schaefer. I guess it's sort of like having Bluto Blutarsky as John Belushi. It's like, yeah, I highly doubt that's what
he was just spaced out giving people vials of coke.
I think there's like, because Paul Schaefer, like just the banter with David Letterman, obviously he's got more to say than that, but it was just so funny and fun and kind of like it was sort of like a fun little snap, like a little bit of seasoning through almost like a Greek chorus. Like he played Mercury in or Hermes, whatever. He played Mercury in Hercules, in the Hercules cartoon. Was Paul Schaefer, and he kind of had that same. He was kind of like a mercurial kind of character in the movie.
Chevy Chase. Usually, when like you're the comedian, you're a comedian. You come from like not a point of status. Like Chevy Chase is like a stud, still manages to be funny. I always thought that like Piscopo had too many muscles to be. I was like, why would he?
The thing is with Piscopo is that like when he was at his like height, he didn't have the muscles, but then like he was just he was hitting home runs on Saturday Night Live.
He's
with
hilarious.
Him and Eddie Murphy. He was hitting home runs. Eddie Murphy was his best friend, and then somewhere along the way he started working out, and then he was on like Bally's commercial.
I remember that
workout commercial, and then he became like muscle bound, and then it was like the breaks were. That's another thing. I want to do an episode. I'm going to do some Brian De Palma.
Holy shit! I'm there.
I just found I've talked about this movie on the show. I didn't know this, but the movie Wise Guys with Danny DeVito and Joe Piscopo. It was like one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. I just found out that's a Brian De Palma film. I did not know that was Brian De Palma until very recently.
We got to do a double feature of Wise Guys and what's the Michael Keaton with Johnny Dangerously.
Johnny Dangerously, yeah.
What a great double feature.
The guy who was playing Dan Aykroyd was great too. It just felt like it's just so fun to see like young Chevy Chase and young Dan Aykroyd and that and
he falls over the garbage can. He's like, "Whoops! I tripped over my penis."
Even seeing like Billy Crystal as like an up and comer was kind of fun too. Because again, like from the time we met those actors, they were already like middle aged. Like even again, and maybe they were in their 30s or whatever. But like, And even like Billy Crystal, like when I'm introduced to Billy Crystal, he's got gray hair, as Fernando.
You know what? Peacock has every episode.
Gotta find the Roy Scheider.
We gotta find the Roy Scheider episode.
Yeah, that's the first Saturday Night Live episode I ever remember seeing. I saw that Ringo episode. Do you remember the episode where Ringo is the host and they're like the cold open? They're auctioning off Beatles memorabilia, and it's all going for like big prices, and then they auction off Ringo, and nobody like all the sketches would kind of bleed into each other. So like Ringo shows up later in the show in like somebody bought him, and now they don't know what to do with their Ringo. Such a fun movie, and as like a fan of Saturday Night Live, it was just so much fun, and all the little like lapses in continuity and stuff don't who cares?
Yeah. We love seeing like Gilda Radner.
Yeah, like I would have liked to have seen more of her. Like I was a little disappointed that she kind of had like a minimal role. Gilda Radner, who you're coming there to see, kind of, like I thought there'd be more of her. I was a little disappointed there wasn't. But again, I feel like it was just this, just like the show itself, it's this amazing ensemble, and you have this ensemble. You have this kind of, you're following Lorne as he's going through, and so you just kind of make the best movie you can with like the pieces you have. So maybe it just didn't.
George Carlin
was who was? I feel like it was somebody famous, some like comedian that was playing George Carlin.
Oh, you know who he was? He was the co-star of the Tom Hanks Mr. Rogers movie. He was the other guy. I think it was like Matthew Reese or something.
Okay.
He was
like the interviewer.
The interviewer from
The Interlocutor. He was really good as George Carlin. And immediately after the movie was done, when I went home, I put on that first episode. I didn't watch the whole thing, but and it does dovetail nicely.
Perfect.
It is fun to see like some of those elements and seeing George Carlin like coming.
I like
down
how
the
he comes from
as you're
And then I didn't realize they had like a brick. They're trying to do like a street kind of.
Yeah, that was fun. That was they had all these different little elements to make it come together. I did come into this movie with some apprehension. The fact that it was late in the year made me think, it must be some
dumping
movie
ground.
Dumping. I was really charmed by this movie.
And it was breezy too.
So yeah,
it was like it felt like 85 minutes or something.
The urgency was really good too, because it's getting closer and closer to like 11:30, and the situation's just getting like more and more desperate.
Forgot. I didn't realize that they were going to cut to Carson. Like Carson was their backup plan.
Right? Yeah, they were going to show Carson reruns, and it was kind of fun when like Rich Little or he's Lorne Michaels is talking on the phone to like a Johnny Carson impersonator. Like, how fun is all of this stuff?
It's so much fun.
And the fact that Johnny Carson impersonator like was so shitty, like it was not a good Johnny Carson impersonation, but it's still like so fun.
It hit. When I was thinking back on the movie, I kept thinking back on the Johnny Carson phone call. He's like, "This is my network," or whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good luck.
And Willem Dafoe as sort of like the network executive.
Oh, and like you said, condensing everything. I'm sure. You think they didn't come up with not ready for primetime players?
Yeah, he's
20 minutes beforehand.
Your players aren't quite ready for prime time. Yeah. No matter how egregious any of these things are,
I love it.
It was just so fun. You just never know with a movie, and it's just like the elements really came together, kind of in spite of these little curiosities we're pointing out.
It was a great time at the
movies, and we'll see you next time. And check out Godzilla's Monsterpiece Theater. It's a comic I'm super proud of, and issue 2 will be along.
Just a message for all you Total Recall fans out there: you look marvelous. I'm gonna put in my email signature. It's like, you guys are marvelous. Roy Scheider.
Yeah.